look, hear me out about what I did in here, because this isn't for everybody. This look is not for everybody. I understand why you might want to do things differently than this, but this is how I did it. And I think it's going to benefit this area in more than one way. Here, look, I just came out here, and as you can see, here we go. That is a little bit easier to see. That I came through and just cut the zinnias off at the base so I could sow some new things in here, some of which are already coming up. I sowed more zinnias. I sowed some sunflowers. I sowed a few other things, but I left all these little stumps in here, and they're drying out and they're getting just like hard as nails. Because I get asked about armadillos a lot. And I do have an armadillo that hangs out in my garden. And I think she can sense when I have placed a seed in the ground, because she immediately comes through that night and just like, you know, armadillos, they can't see hardly at all, but their sense of smell is excellent. So she can smell that I have disturbed the earth. She typically goes straight for things like that, and also things that are moist. So she comes through here, and the armadillo, if you look at her snout, it's almost like spade-like, right? Because she's turning the dirt up and she's eating worms, she's eating grubs, she's eating bugs, and she's aerating the soil, which is fine. Honestly, every year she takes out a few things that I don't catch, because sometimes if I put a plug or a baby plant in the ground, she can come through, flip it out of the ground, and then it just lays on the ground. And if I don't catch it, it dries out and it will die. But in the case of seeds, there's no correcting that. When she comes through and turns the dirt up and she displaces the seed, you're not going to be able to relocate it and put it back where it was. This appears to be almost like, I think she's coming through and hitting it. And honestly, they're really, really hard. And if you were to step on them, it wouldn't feel good, I don't think, because some of the edges of them are really sharp. Like, I wouldn't walk through here barefoot. I think it's kind of deterring her from this area. I also sprinkled some granules around called Repelzol. Repelzol, I'll put a picture of it here on the screen. It comes in a spray and it comes in a granule. Don't get the spray. The spray is terrible. Not to say it doesn't work. I think it probably works, but it's miserable to handle. It gets on your clothes, it gets on your hands. The sprayer you use it in, it's not fun. I really like the granules. I haven't seen any armadillo activity. Normally she'd be on this like white on rice. She'd be in here, she'd be tearing it up, she'd be eating good. That's fine. But I would kind of like to see my sunflowers and stuff grow before a frost. Let's go over here and get the plants that we need for today's project. Oh, look at this. Ooh, that's a beauty. Oh my gosh. Whoa there. One of these things is not like the others, huh? I think this was all supposed to be cactus. Look at that guy. Beautiful. Everything's very sunset, sunrise colors this morning. Alrighty, here's part of our project for today. I have two Veronicas like this. This is called a Skyward Pink. Here's our blooms right here. Beautiful. The bumblebees have been all over this thing as it sits here on my little plant palette area. And like I said, this is a Veronica variety called Skyward Pink. It gets 18 inches tall and wide, zones 4 through 9. And I want to put this out because both of them, they're sitting in their pots and they're extremely unhappy. In fact, one of them has pests on it. Here's the other one. And you can see that we have a little bit of bug activity. I'm really not worried about it whatsoever. And I think once we get it in the ground, it's really gonna snap out of that. We're gonna cut a lot of this off actually when we plant it, a lot of these spent blooms, but when this Veronica is in full bloom, makes these big, beautiful candles of bright pink flowers. Oh, look, here he is now. Speak of the devil. Not the devil, but, oh, I scared him. Anyway, the bumblebees love this plant. And so do I. Veronica is pretty darn tough. Okay, let's get our plants and take them out there. Okay, y'all, here's the flower bed where we wound up at. And you may recognize this one as being one of the newer flower beds that we have out here. I'm trying to get my huge shadow out of the way, my goodness. I wouldn't even know how you'd go about describing this shape. Maybe like a messed up teardrop. I don't know. I just kind of went with it. But some of the things that we have in here are things that I know are incredibly, incredibly tough, resilient plants. It's going to be exposed to road dust. It tends to be a little bit warmer right here because of the reflected heat from the road. It's like a little microclimate. The things that we have growing in here are Zexmania, got a salvia in here, some monarda, some little baby propagated sedum. Those will take a while to take off. Nepeta, Flamicanthus. I just saw this morning a few hummingbirds over here battling it out, fighting, being typical hummingbirds. And behind this Flamicanthus is this beautiful Buddleia. Get that orange throat and those lilac blooms. It's every bit of like 6 feet tall already, and it started as just a little stump in the ground. Buddleia are so good for filling in a really, really hot and exposed place in your garden, and the butterflies obviously really, really enjoy them. More Zexmania, more salvia under here that we transplanted, and as we swing around, more of the salvia greggii. So this is where I'd like to situate this Veronica. I think that'd look really nice, and it'll fill in this area pretty well. And since they get 18 inches tall, it's a really good front of the flower bed plant. And I'd really like to see how much sun and heat these can take. Let's see what these look like. I think okay, not too bad. A lot better than I expected. Yeah, we're fine. I was gonna say for a second there, maybe I kept it in the water for too long, but it was just so unhappy all the time, no matter how many times I came by and watered it. So I think it just really wants out of these pots. Here's our second one. I don't know if y'all can see my puppy eating. Uh-oh. A little piece fell off. Sad. I don't know if y'all can see my puppy eating these Zexmania. Dogs love Zexmania. I don't know what the deal is with that, but yeah, both of these plants are looking really good. I think that we had some ants make a home in this area, but I'm not seeing them anymore. They must have moved on. But I can see the remnants of their nest. That's the thing about some of our native ants. They're really good at aerating the soil, breaking up that soil. I don't treat for ants either. Every now and then, if they're in a really inconvenient place, I might spray them with the hose, but just generally speaking, ants are actually very beneficial to have in your garden space, and it's a question that I get asked quite a lot, like how do I get rid of ants? And I don't really have a good answer for that because I don't try to get rid of ants. And a lot of them can just be encouraged to move along, but I'm seeing, you know, this soil, I can kind of see where they had their little tunnels and stuff. And they've moved along here. I don't know. Can you see that? They've moved along for whatever reason. I don't know why. not here no more. I don't do any pest control out here, no matter what, even if it makes for, I'm not embarrassed to show a plant that has bugs on it. It's been sitting in that's not a natural place for this Veronica to be, right? It doesn't want to be sitting in this container. It wants to be in the ground. It wants to be getting sun all over its leaves. It wants to send its roots out into the ground. And when a plant is stressed out, it will be preferentially, it's much more likely to be attacked by bugs, which is what's going on with this one. But, ooh, I really like that right there. Where's my watering can? We just got a rain, so the soil's not doing too bad over here. We are gonna go ahead and take care of some of these spent blooms though. And yes, I am just putting it down into the planting hole. It's gonna break down and go away. There's no reason not to. I understand it has bugs on it. I'm super not worried about it. I have a hard time even describing how little I am worried about it. It doesn't bother me at all to show y'all things like this. Someone on my TikTok the other day compared their garden space to Thunderdome, and I had to Google what Thunderdome was, but they're not wrong. Strong shall survive, right? So I'm gonna come back through here. I'm gonna put our native soil back in. Uh-oh. It's okay. Oh, I had dislodged a spider on accident. Here you go. There, he's good now. No, you made a web. Okay, there you go. He had strung a piece of silk at some point from my hat and he was going back up it. There we go. Okay, I don't have room for this big old chunk. I don't know how many of y'all live that watch this, that live kind of near where I'm at, but and I'm like an hour north of Waco, but I was driving, it must have been Monday morning when we had a really big, really bad storm come through, and I was on 35 when it did come through, and I had not been paying attention to the weather. I typically don't look out for storms in August. You know, that's very unusual to have a big rainstorm like we did in August. But you know how when you're driving and you can just see the wall of the storm, the rainwater, and it's like you're on the dry side and you're approaching this big sheet of rain as it comes down. I saw it, but I did not anticipate it being as bad as it was. I almost had to, well, I couldn't even pull over because I couldn't see any paint. The rain it was like a white out. The rain was coming down so thick and so fast that I just had to put my flashers on and go like 20 miles an hour. And people were trying to pull over all over the place, but it's like, if you can't see, you cannot see. You couldn't see anything. You didn't know whether you were gonna be on the highway or driving off down into the embankment or hitting the guardrail or anything. You could not see even a few inches in front of your vehicle. So that was pretty intense for August, but we did get about 1.5 inches of rain and it did flatten out. Oops, I forgot to bury these pieces. It did flatten out quite a few plants, damaged quite a few plants, but those are all things that I'm just gonna leave alone. You know, this time of year, I'm not gonna do any kind of major reshaping on things that got damaged by a storm. If it were spring, I definitely would correct that, but these things that are splayed out, I don't wanna go about cutting on them right now. It's just not gonna be It's not going to be advantageous for the plant, right? They're preparing to set seed. We're going into fall. If I were to cut it back, you know, the rate of their growth slows as the day gets shorter. There's just there's not really any point in correcting that. I mean, I guess you could. It wouldn't like kill it, but it's not going to rebound to its spring self, if that makes sense. So I have a lot of splayed out plants currently. They'll be fine. Okay, our next project is going to be propagating some stuff in this flower bed right behind me. Y'all know how I am about propagation, but the reason that we're going to propagate now, which is kind of off schedule, I do a lot of propagating in the spring from cuttings, because that tends to be the growth that is much more suitable to propagating with, because of the type of growth that is emerging. It's in spring, it's new, it's fresh. You might hear it referred to as basal growth. That's what is a really good material for doing cuttings from. But I need to save this Agastache that I told you guys about last time, because I started it from seed, but the seed packet was not in English, and I have no idea what kind of Agastache it is. So even if I wanted to reorder the seed, that Etsy listing has been taken down and I can't order it again. But I really like it, so I want to take cuttings of it now. It's in the mint family. It should strike really, really quick. But I just want to show you what I'm going to propagate, and I'm going to show you the materials that I typically use to propagate things. Looky here. Isn't that pretty? The camera's not really doing it justice, but it's a really pretty soft purple. I really, really like it. I like the color of the leaf. I like the blooms. It's really pretty. So we're going to take some cuttings from it, but we have to go gather our supplies to make our medium, and that's going to involve going past some very nosy horses. So brace yourself. Hey, baby. Oh my God, you just gave them a close-up of your boogers. You just gave them a close-up of your boogers. Things that we need are more sand. Before I put my hand in there, I should probably make sure that it's not got a scorpion nest. Let's pour it instead, shall we? Instead of just shoving our hand in there. Oh, that's heavy. Okay, we need sand. Stop. Sorry, yelling at horses. We need sand and perlite. Okay. Shoo, 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 shoo. Excuse me. Ah. Bye-bye, baby Hink. Bye-bye, baby Hink. He's weirded out by this camera thing that I have. He's like, get away from me. Let's get our cuttings here. And I don't necessarily want to take flowers from the bees. So I'm going to cut things that aren't flowering quite yet. All right, y'all. Here we are. This is my little makeshift propagation station, obviously. There's our material. Here's our bucket full of sand and perlite. I just put potting soil in here, and I'm gonna mix it together. And all that this sand and perlite is gonna do is improve the drainage so our cuttings don't rot, right? That can tend to be the biggest issue when it comes to propagating, especially where it's so humid where we're at that things can rot before they can strike. So we're just gonna mix this in No, it's not perfect. I'm not measuring anything. I'm just trying to go for a particular consistency that I like. And I did already wet down this potting mix. I get asked quite a bit what kind of potting mix I use. Whatever I have, unless it's seed starting, because I do soil blocking. So my preferred soil for that is quite different because it has to do with the integrity of the block, not falling apart. But when it comes to things like this, I mean, if I'm at Walmart and I get the Walmart brand, that's okay. If I happen to get a different, I don't have any kind of sponsors, so it is whatever happens to be on hand. And I'm going to use these little leftover 4-packs. I'm filling them up with soil. And like I said earlier, I'd like to get 10, but looks like we're going to go for 12. Pringle, your big self is going to tump this whole thing over. It's not very stable. Counterweight. First thing we got to do is we got to dibble these holes, because we're going to coat these cuttings in some rooting hormone, and I don't want that to then just be removed as we stick the cutting down into this medium that we've made. Here's what I use. I've also used the liquid. I find them to be equally as good. I don't have any kind of preference one way or the other. Let's trim these. We want 12 pieces, right? And the area that we want to focus on is where new growth is emerging. These are all nodes. That's why leaves are coming out of them. So we're going to be removing these because this is the part that I want to bury, right? So I'm going to cut right here. But I'm going to be removing a lot of this growth because I don't want the cutting to have to support that. But I do want it to still be able to gather some food from the light, and it needs leaves to do that. So I'm going to do that number, stir it around in there. Hope I'm in the camera for y'all. Okay, there we go. And put it down into one of them holes. And once I have, I just kind of take my fingers and lightly press around it because this is obviously thicker than our stem. So we want to make sure that it's really, really cozy in there. And then we're going to repeat that. Wow, look at all that. There's our little guys. So we'll keep those evenly moist over the next several weeks, and I expect those to root real quick. Here you go, Pringle. That is it for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all next time.